name's Abby, and we are so excited that you're tuning in with us today as we continue the series, Fight for It. Because one thing that we know is true for all of us is that each of us have some sort of battle we're fighting. And we think that God cares about those places in our lives. So today we're gonna be talking specifically about fighting for our marriages, fighting for future relationships. Because let's be honest, having a healthy marriage is hard work. In fact, most marriages begin with a lot of passion and purpose, but few stay that way. So whether you're single, married, single again, married again, or feeling like you'd like to learn how to prevent that, you are in the right place, so stick around. Now, before we get to that, we would love to connect with you. The best way to do this is simply scan the QR code or fill out the form next to the stream. Take a moment, tell us about yourself. If it's your first time with us, we'll drop a gift in the mail this week just as our way of saying thank you for joining us today. There are lots and lots of ways to connect around here, whether you're new or newer, if you've been around for a while. As we begin 2024, if you're looking for some new connection, new trajectory, new purpose, just some fun, we're here to help. First, Game Day 2024 is almost here. And if you're not sure what we're talking about, check this out. February 8th and 11th in all of our weekend services, America's favorite holiday, the Super Bowl, paired with church, turns a good weekend into a great weekend. And I am talking church like you have never experienced it before. A football-themed environment and a reverent teaching competition, a halftime show that is going to blow your mind, and tailgating in the parking lot. Yes, you heard that right. So mark your calendars, invite your rowdy friends. Online crowd, this is one of those weekends where we would love to rub shoulders with you if you're in the greater Indianapolis area. So invite you to bring those tailgate grills, cornhole, that stocked cooler. Get ready for one of the wildest and best weekends all year here at Crosspoint, Game Day 2024. Hey students, do you know what it feels like when everything is just everywhere, overwhelming, stressful, just a lot? We know that today's teenagers know that feeling more than any generation has gone before them, which is why we want to invite you to join us this Sunday evening as we continue a new series at Crosspoint Student Ministries all about stress, what to do when life just feels like a lot. If you're a 7th through 12th grade student, we can't wait to see you at CSM this Sunday evening right here at the Crosspoint campus. Now, one last thing, a brand new small group season is kicking off this week, and we want to help you find a place. If you're feeling a bit disconnected, perhaps looking for some people to bring out goodness in your life, we want to help you find those people in that place because life is just better when we do it together. You can check out all of our small group opportunities through this QR code. There's groups for women, for men, groups for anyone regardless of gender or relationship status. Some meet online, some in person. If we can help you find a place, just let us know. All right, we've got a great service today. We're taking an honest look at our marriages and future relationships, at seeking God's heart for what He wants for those relationships in our lives. So let's head to the venue and get this party started with some Harry Styles.
Just let me adore you, oh honey. Walk through fire for you. Just let me adore you, like it's the only thing I'll ever do. Walk through fire for you. Just let me adore you, oh honey. Walk through fire for you. Just let me adore you, like it's the only thing I'll ever do. Oh, like it's the only thing I'll ever do.
All right, come on, let's give it up for this band this weekend right here. Come on, some of the best music you're going to hear. Hey, I'll walk through fire for you. Just let me adore you. That's what we'll be talking about this weekend. Excited you're here. And welcome to Crosspoint. My name's Curt, and let's make some noise for those joining us online this weekend. So excited to have you join us on the other side of a screen this weekend. And whether you're tuning in online, whether you're here in the room for the first time, we just want to say welcome. We realize there's a lot of options that you have when it comes to church, so we're excited you're here. We're in week 3 of our series, Fight For It, and we're going to be talking about marriage this weekend, and this is a big one. In fact, we're going to be talking about some things that you're just not going to hear generally in our culture today, and so we're excited you're here. If you're a note taker, this would be a good day to take notes, whether that's on paper or, screenshotting, so get ready for that, and we're going to have some fun. You guys want to have some fun today? Have some fun digging into this, because we got to laugh at ourselves, right? I mean, we take our relationships seriously, but, if we're honest, relationships are hard, and sometimes we don't understand each other, and that's okay. It's all part of learning and growing, and to help us kind of get in the vibe of that a bit, let's take a look at one of America's favorite comedians and some of the relationship challenges that he faces that we probably all can relate to. Take a look at this. Oh, come on. I think the best part of that scene right there was somebody in the audience, like 2 of you gasped. You're like, yes. And so you got more of that coming. We're going to take a look at Nate here in a bit. But we're going to have some fun with this. And, whether you're single, married, there's a lot of messaging when it comes to love in our culture today. And I want to take a look at just a quick list of what our movies, what a lot of the songs in our, in our world tell us. And so it says love is a splendid thing. It lifts us up where we belong. It creates a special feeling. It's magical. Love it makes you want to shout it from the rooftops. It gives you butterflies, and it completes you. And so let me just, say, we feel these things when we experience love, right? We feel like it's magical, and he feels it, she feels it, and all of a sudden you fall in love, he's in love, she's in love, and then, we're like, oh, we ought to get married, and then we live happily ever after, right? It just always goes that way. And let me just ask the married people in the room, and you don't have to answer out loud, but how is that going for you? Let me just ask. Because, in our country today, you may or may not know this, but approximately 1 divorce happens every 42 seconds in our country. And so today I want to kind of look at some things that help us come against that. How do we actually get a truer sense of what it means to love and what God designed for our relationships, specifically even marriages? In fact, I just want you to turn to one of your neighbors right now and ask them a question, unless it's your spouse. If it's your spouse, turn the other way, because I don't want to start anything before we finish here today, all right? So just turn to somebody near you and go, hey, have you lost that love and feeling? Just ask them right now, have you lost that love and feeling? Because I think a lot of us have lost that love and feeling, and I think God wants to help us bring that back. And so, research says that the number one reason for divorce today is incompatibility. And this is fascinating to me, because if you just take the word compatible and you break it down, the root word is, compatible comes from the word pathos, which actually means to suffer, and the prefix there, com, means with. So compatible actually means to suffer with. And so, when we think about what it means to be compatible, it's really that we're like choosing to suffer with one another. And, which means that, in many ways in our culture today, we say, well, I had the loving feelings, and I felt special, and I used to shout it from the rooftops, but I don't feel magical, I don't feel special anymore, and I feel like I've lost that love and feeling, and you don't complete me anymore, so apparently I guess I'm out. I mean, I'm just, it's over because all the feelings are gone. And we know that when this happens, it leaves a lot of shrapnel and a lot of hurt and wounds and scars and brokenness and, lives and families. And I don't have to tell you that because, for many of us, we've experienced that. And so we got to take this real serious, and we are going to, have fun as a part of our time today, because we believe you can have fun and pursue God's purposes at the same time. But I do want to be real serious here for a moment, because, just talking about love and marriage, especially in a church setting, I know this triggers certain things. And, God talked a lot about, love and marriage in the Old Testament into the New Testament. I mean, it's a pretty big thing, and I get excited about talking about it. I just want you to know that I realize it does trigger things, not just because we're in church. I mean, you could hear this in Chipotle, and it could trigger something. And so I want to kind of hit 3 people groups real quick. As I was prepping for this, my heart was just kind of very, aware of this, and I can't hit, everyone, of course, but first group is single people. We've got a lot of single people here at Crosspoint that start all the way down with like our students, junior high students, senior high students, college students, young adults, single again. And what happens usually when we start talking about marriage and in church is, without even meaning to, there's kind of this subliminal message that kind of gets received that this is kind of the end all and be all. And so if you're not married, then, you just apparently haven't arrived yet. And so you must be like a second-class citizen. And, and maybe you will get married, maybe you won't get married. I just want to be really clear that I want you to know I don't see it that way. We don't see it that way. If you're not a second-class citizen if you're not married. And in fact, the Apostle Paul even said it's better that you don't get married. He actually said one time, it makes life simpler for you, and it actually allows you to focus your resources on, running after him and really loving everyone that's a part of your circle and blessing people in your orbit. And he was basically like, not everybody gets that gift. And some people have what's called the gift of singleness, meaning, there's nothing wrong if you're single and you want to stay single, and perhaps God wired you that way and designed that. And if that's you, like that's totally cool. Like God does that. That wasn't a mistake. And so I just don't want us to ever feel bad about not being married. At the same time, I know there's some of us who are single who really want to be married, which means you probably don't have the gift of singleness. But whenever we start talking about this in church, you're just like, gosh, I must be broken. There must be something wrong with me. Why can't I, kind of end up with where I feel like, they say I should be? And so I just want to make it really clear that God, he has good plans for you. He even says, hey, I know the plans I have, and they're for good and for a good future. And so I just want to encourage you, don't lose hope. I want to encourage you to lean into faith. Second group is those who have been divorced or maybe divorced, multiple times. Because again, when we talk about marriage, especially in a church setting, it's easy for regret and shame to make its way in. And I just want you to know that's not from God. That's from the evil one. That's actually from the intelligent darkness that wants you to feel that. And I've never been divorced before personally, so I don't know that experience personally, but I've experienced a lot of that in my family of origin, one generation up from me. My parents, all of my uncles and aunts have experienced divorce, in many cases more than once. And so I just want you to know that's not lost on me. I've watched the pain and the brokenness, and I know a part of that journey and that it's real. And I just want you to know if that's a part of your story, that's your past, it's not your future. All right, and the God I follow redeems and restores. And so I just want you to be encouraged and remember that. And then last, as we talk about fighting, for our marriages, which includes some tough decisions when it comes to our spouses, here's what I'm not saying. If you're in an abusive relationship where you're getting hit or you're getting hurt, or you have a partner that is just jeopardizing the well-being of everyone in your home, whether that's you or your kids, I'm not encouraging you to stay in that. You just need to know. You might need to call the police. You might need to call a therapist. I hope you'll pick an appropriate route. But I just want you to know you need to get out of that. God has better plans for you than that. All right, we good on all that? Yeah? All right. So here's our big idea for today as we kind of dive into that. I want us to look at this idea of love is not a feeling, it's a choice. And let's be honest, when you bring two people together, there's all these feelings that happen, and you're bringing two people from, different backgrounds, different families of origin and experiences. We view life differently, and even the way we look at the world is like totally different. And so it's a challenge, and sometimes the feelings only last so long. So we have to realize that actually this relationship is designed to be more than just based on feelings, that there's choices here. And even when you love something so much and you want to introduce that to your spouse and you want them to do that with you, sometimes it doesn't go the way that you've planned. So let's take another humorous look at how this plays out here. Take a look at this. Oh, my word. Relationships are hard, right? I mean, it doesn't matter, how well and compatible you might be. It's hard. This is hard work. And oftentimes the feelings just don't get us there, which is why it's important for us to see that there's something there beyond just the feelings. There's a choice here. And, perhaps this is maybe for the ladies in the room, and guys, you're going to have to forgive me on this, but perhaps Nicholas Sparks was actually right, of Notebook fame, when he said, so it's not going to be easy. It's going to be really hard. We're going to have to work at this every day, but I want to do that because I want all of you forever, you and me every day. I think that's actually one of the best quotes from movies, songs, things in our world that really capture, just the difficulty, I think, that we find when it comes to marriage and why fighting for it is so important. So I'm going to share with you some things that have come out of my life and even out of a season. You're going to hear a bit of my story and also some things from a pastor, Sean Johnson, some things that were really helpful for me when I was navigating some difficult things in my life, and I hope that they're beneficial for you as we think about what does it mean to fight for this part of our lives. Now, I want us to take a look at what the Apostle Paul says on this, because Paul is somebody we like to talk about around here. He wasn't originally from like a Christian background. He was very religious, but then he discovered who Jesus was. And he's like, oh my God, this is like amazing. He actually benefits your life and wants to personally know you, and this stuff makes sense. And so he leaned into following Jesus, and then he tries to help other people experience the same. He's like, gosh, this is so amazing. I need everybody to experience this. So he starts writing these letters to people that are new to their faith, that have been working on their faith, that are trying to grow in their faith, that are running after God, to help us understand what this looks like. So here's one of the things Paul says, and you probably have heard this before. He says, love is patient. Just notice the choices right here. Love is kind. It does not envy, all right? So that's not an easy choice right there, and definitely not a feeling. It does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It's not self-seeking. It's not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects. Again, notice the choices. They're all choices. It always trusts. It always hopes. It always perseveres. See, this is why I really want us to grasp this idea that love is so much more than a feeling, that this is a choice. And, I'm not saying choices don't come with or feelings don't come with this choice. God gave us emotions. And the reality is when we love somebody, we feel a lot of emotions. We feel a lot of warm, fuzzy, magical things, all the things the songs say. It's just that, and there's times where we want to shout it from the rooftop, right? And then there's other times where you want to push your spouse from the rooftop. Like, if I'm just honest, like I go from one end to the other. And so, but there's always feelings. It's just that feelings and choices, feelings and love are actually two entirely different things, which is why we often find ourselves, feeling like we're falling in love, out of love, and why we feel like we've lost that loving feeling. And yet God says, no, you actually choose love. You choose to love someone. The feelings are going to come and go, but this is something, if you want a relationship, you want a marriage that lasts, you're going to have to say, okay, it's more than the feelings. I'm going to have to choose some things right here. Now, if you've been around Crosspoint for a year or so, let's say, then you probably have heard a bit of my story that I've shared over the past couple of years with something I've experienced that was the first time for me, dealing with some depression and dealing with some anxiety and even at moments panic attacks, a number of things that were brand new to me over the last few years, just from the season we've been through, from leading an organization through, a tumultuous time in our world. And those things really did a number on me and made me at times, not the best version of myself. There were times where I wasn't sure I was going to make it. There were times, I was trying to be really honest and authentic with my board. You're not getting the best version of me right now. I wasn't even sure my family was going to make it. And times even I questioned if my wife and I were actually going to make it. And I'm confident, as I look back at some of that season, that for Julie, it was not easy loving me at times. I'm going to be really honest. Love had to be more than a feeling. It had to be a very conscious choice because you have to choose love. There's just seasons where you choose love. Now, fast forward a year and a half or so, and we just came off an amazing 72-hour date where we went to New York City for a few days. I had an amazing time, and, I did want to shout it from the rooftops, like, oh, man, this is amazing. And I'm telling you that because, even when you go through difficult seasons, there's this amazing thing that love has the ability of coming back around because you have to choose beyond the feelings. And this is one of the things that Jesus actually shows us. In fact, he says, hey, if you want to start loving someone like this, in fact, here's how he put it. He said, a new commandment I give to you. I want you to love one another as I have loved you, so you must love one another. And so when Jesus says this, it kind of begs the question, like, okay, so how has Jesus loved me so that I can actually turn that around and love someone else this way, specifically in this case, my spouse? And so the Apostle Paul actually gives us another picture of what this looks like, of what Jesus was referring to here. And this time, Paul is writing to this group of Christians who are scattered all around Rome. And he says this, he says, but God demonstrates. So he's like, hey, he shows us what it looks like in his own love for us in this. While you and I were still sinners, meanwhile, we were still out doing our thing, while we were still out, missing the mark, while we had no interest in God, while we were like, hey, God, I know you're there, you're probably, interested in me, but I'm not going to really pay attention to that. While you and I were still, like, doing our thing, that Christ actually, in the midst of that, before we even turned an eye to him, before we even gave any attention or showed that we wanted to, make a turn, that Christ died for us. And I can promise you, though, that there was no magical feelings going on that drove him to do that. He just said, hey, I'm going to decide to love you. I'm going to just, give you everything. I'm going to love you with everything I've got. I'm going to make your life better with everything I've got. I'm going to sacrifice my comfort. I'm going to sacrifice my will. I'm going to sacrifice my life for you. That's what love looks like. And those are choices, again, that aren't, coming because of some magical, I just felt warm and fuzzy inside. Those are choices that are like, no, I decided this is what I'm going to do. And listen, as we dig into just even where Jesus was when he was, saying this stuff, we understand the context. He was like in the Garden of Gethsemane. This is like in his final days, right before he was arrested. And he knows he's about to be arrested. He knows he's going to be attached to a whipping post. He knows he's going to be beaten, almost unrecognizably, where people aren't going to know who he is. He knows he's going to be marched up on top of a hill. He's going to be stripped down. He's going to be made a spectacle of. He's going to be put, on a cross, and he's going to die one of the most excruciating deaths known to humankind, crucifixion. He knows all this is about to happen, and yet when he's in the garden with his boys, with his team, here's what it says happens. It says, Jesus went with the disciples to a place called Gethsemane, and he told them, hey, sit here while I pray. And then he took kind of his inner circle, his inner three. He took Peter and the two sons of Zebedee, James and John, along with him, and he began to be sorrowful and troubled. And then he said to them, my soul, look at this phrase, my soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. So Jesus right here, he's like, I'm going to show you what like love looks like right here. I'm gonna serve you with everything I've got. And again, don't get this twisted. There were no magical feelings going on right here. He's like, I am fighting through some of the hardest feelings I've ever felt in my life. And yet I'm going to push through those. I'm feeling overwhelmed to death right now, but I'm going to choose to override those feelings, and I'm going to choose to love you. And, sometimes we just don't feel it. And Jesus modeled this, but he chose it. In fact, this last week, I was kind of, just searching around. What are some of the big issues that, couples deal with that aren't the big deal breakers, but like the everyday things? And you might be shocked that this is like one of the things I found. This is kind of fascinating to me. This is one of the search engines actually came up with this. What is the best way to deal with farting in a relationship or marriage, especially in bed? Now, are you guys interested in seeing what some of the responses to this were? People chimed in on this. I'm like, wow, this is a thing apparently. I didn't even know this. And so I'll show you a few of them. One guy just said, hey, laughter. You just gotta laugh about it. When your spouse is farting in bed, you just laugh about it. Another guy chimed in, and he was just kind of like, all right, you deal with the same way that we dealt with Hitler. The armed forces dealt with Hitler. You just retaliate against them, man. You just let them fly. Just fight back. And then a woman actually chimed in, and she was like, I have never considered farting in front of men before. And talked about her mother never did that. And she never did. She was 3 years into her marriage, and she never, farted. And then she's like, and then I got pregnant, and that all went out the door. And so like she realized, okay, this is a deal. And then one guy I didn't even know this was a thing till recently. He calls it a Dutch oven. Maybe you guys know the Dutch oven, where you like fart under the covers and then you seal your spouse in. So like you all have to deal with it. I thought a Dutch oven was for a stove. And so this was fascinating because we were kind of talking about this week, and one of my wife, actually, not my kids, my wife sent me this image of a guy who's like, okay, so here's a marriage fix right here for that. He's like, you just, this is what it means to love my spouse. I'm gonna go all out. It's a solution to the Dutch oven right there. And so, love is a choice. Like there's things we have to do. It's especially when we're not feeling it. And so I want to get into some application. I want to give us just some things that we can do, things that have been helpful to me, 3 practical ways we can fight for it. I mean, when we're not feeling for it, how do you fight for it? The first thing you can choose is to hand over the rope. We hand over the rope. When Julie and I got married, we heard this phrase, and you probably heard this phrase from people before. Somebody said to us, marriage is a give and take. It's a 50-50. I mean, it's meeting in the middle. And so we just kind of did that. That's kind of how we started. And, she'd do some, and I'm like, well, I'll do the other part. And, and she'd like cook one night, and then I'd cook another night. And then she worked like an hour away, and I worked 2 minutes from my office. But I'm like sitting and waiting for him, like, gosh, I'm wondering when she's going to get home to cook his dinner. And so, it was just this like, back and forth. And it was this like fair share. We're going to each do 50-50. And, marriage counselors, they'll tell you that the number one thing that will break down a marriage is keeping score, which is fascinating because the only way you can keep up with 50-50 is to keep score. And what it looks like is you're in this like constant tug of war. All right, you're in this constant like back and forth because you're trying to figure out, have I done my part? Have you done your part? And it's interesting because, this begins to come up. You're like, well, I've been serving for a while. I mean, it's your turn because we're 50-50, right? I'm paying attention. We're supposed to meet in the middle. So, you pick up the rope and there's a tug of war. You say, well, I honored you the other night, but, you didn't honor me. Like we were out, at that thing and we were with your friends and, I just didn't feel like you were honoring to me and I just felt like you should have been more honoring because it's supposed to be 50-50 and, or this one, saying sorry first. Last couple times we've been in an argument. I mean, I'm the one that's been the first to, apologize, say I'm sorry, and listen, I'm not doing it again. I'm going to sit here and wait for you to say this because, it's 50-50, and like you need to pick up your end, and so it's this back and forth, right? And this is where all the married people get really quiet because they're like, yeah, I've been there. I know a bit about that. Or, how's come we're always putting your dreams first? What about my dreams? And, last time we did your dreams, so we need to choose my dreams. And so it's just this back and forth. And God says, no, marriage is not 50-50. Marriage is 100-100. It's 100%. In fact, the Apostle Paul, he again writes another letter to a group of people saying, okay, what does it look like to follow God? They're wanting to grow. And here's what he says. This is to men and women, by the way, husbands and wives. He says, submit. That's like 100% right there. He says, submit to one another and look at how he ends this, out of reverence to Christ. So he says, I'm going to submit 100%. I'm going to take my end of the rope. This is what that looks like. I'm going to take my end of the rope, and I'm going to come to you, and I'm going to say, you know what? Here you go. I don't want to win anymore. I'm not going to do the tug of war. I'm not going to do the 50-50. I mean, that's keeping score. I want to help you win. And you know what's amazing is when that happens and the other spouse then goes, okay, no. I don't want to win either. I'm going to give you my end of the rope. I'm going to be the first to serve you. No. I'm going to be the first to serve you. Well, I'm going to be the first to apologize next time. No. I want to be the first to apologize to you. I want to be the first one to honor you. No, I want to be the one that honors you more. And all of a sudden the competition turns into a competition to get at the back of the line. And all of a sudden, I'm telling you, I don't know how you break that couple up right there. I don't know how you drive a wedge between a couple that's always putting the other one first. Because it's not 50-50, it's 100-100. And there's no more tug of war because you said, okay, I'm gonna let go of the rope. Because I want to submit to you. Not because I'm feeling it fully right now. Not even because you deserve it. I mean, we should say, well, you didn't do it because you deserve it. No, I'm actually doing it out of reverence to my heavenly leader because this is what he's modeled for me. And what I want us to see is this is possible. This changes things. Man, it is hard to break that couple up right there when we let go of the end of the rope. Second thing we can do is we have to hydrate their heart. We have to hydrate their heart. Listen, I don't know if you know this or not, but your heart is kind of like a plant. I mean, Jesus talked, at different times about, farming metaphors. He talked about our hearts are kind of like soil, and some of them are fertile, and some are, thorny, and others are rocky. And so you can't just water it and like come back 3 months later and expect it to be alive and doing well and say, I'm going to put water on it again. What would have happened? Things die, things wither if they're not getting hydrated. For some of us, this is what our hearts look like right here. It's what our marriages look like. But it's amazing what begins to happen when you pay attention to actually hydrating it. And hydrating, it's more than words. It's actually showing the other person, hey, this is. I want to put you first. I actually want to honor you. I want to drop the rope. I mean, this is how we keep love alive and vibrant. In fact, Paul again gives us another picture of what this looks like. He says, "Be devoted to one another in love. Honor one another above yourself." Now, this is really, really important right here. And here's why this is so important. I think the reason Paul said this is because, we spend a lot of time, especially, those that are in a marriage relationship, we spend a lot of time perseverating on how the other person could love us more, right? It's like, well, gosh, if they would do this, or if he would do that, if she would do this. And I just want to, suggest, as Paul is, what if we flip that? What if instead of perseverating on how your spouse could actually be more attentive to you, what if we said, I'm going to honor the other person above myself? In fact, I saw an article today in Fortune magazine, and it's talking about the Gottman Institute, which does a lot of marriage study and research, and they're talking about how over the course of studying 40,000 couples, they've realized there's one factor that can predict whether a marriage is going to last with 96% accuracy. Crazy accuracy. And here's the one thing. So this is the one thing. When we see this, we know a relationship's going to last. They said the one factor is turning towards one another. Turning towards one another. Now, you might say, well, what does that look like? Well, they kind of described it. They said when a couple turns toward each other, they make and respond to what we call a bid of connection. This is somebody bidding for connection. So what's turning toward one another look like? Well, turning toward can look like a small gesture of acknowledgement and care, and it signals to your partner that they're being seen, they're being heard, and they're being appreciated. I mean, it could be, just saying, hey, could you help me with this? And actually looking up and making eye contact and responding to the request. It could be starting a conversation instead of staying on my phone saying, I'm going to put this down, I'm going to pay attention, I'm going to look you in the eye. In fact, they said happy couples do this at least 20 times a day. And so this has to do with hydrating the relationship. How do I pay attention to what's going on in my spouse's, life, in our conversation, actually, responding to their bids for connection? Now I'm going to give you another freebie on this. If you don't have a note in your phone on your spouse, man, I encourage you to start a note. All of us. I mean, and if you don't have one, start it right now. Just put their name right there and start a notes page. I've got one that says Julie. That's my wife, and I write down things that she likes. I write things down that are important to her. I know all of her inventories from her disc profile to maybe your spouse has an Enneagram. We don't do Enneagrams, but maybe you have one of those. I know her strengths. I've got all of her top strengths listed. I know what her weaknesses or her things that aren't strengths. She knows what my strengths are. In fact, a couple months ago, we had a moment where I did something, which I know is not a surprise, that was a little hurtful and was pretty insensitive. And she was hurt. She came and said, hey, I'm really hurt by this. But because she knows my strengths and the things that I just, I don't operate, the wirings I don't operate out of, she said, I realized that this wasn't what you intended because I know these are the things you actually operate out of most, and you intended the best out of this, even though it ended up being hurtful. Well, it didn't take away the fact that there was some hurt involved right there, but it actually cleared up some of the intention because she was a student of me. She actually was paying attention and keeping notes. See, this is one of the ways we hydrate our spouse is we're a scholar. You can't honor and serve and take care of the things that matter the most if we're not learning. In fact, if you want a great marriage, Jesus, he was really clear on it one time. He said the greatest marriages, greatest people are those who will be your servants. In fact, I want to give you a good question that perhaps, you could dive into this week. If you're married, this would be a great question to kind of get to the bottom of. Maybe, take some time discussing, what can I do to make our marriage better? Maybe grab a cup of coffee, grab dinner. What do you need from me that I'm not currently doing? What what could I do to better show up for you in our relationship? And see, this is an opportunity to be a servant right here. And what you don't want to do is like, as soon as your spouse starts talking, oh man, you talk about that last time, every time we talk. No, obviously, if they're mentioning it, that means it's really, really important. It's really, really important. All right, so this is how we hydrate their heart. We pay attention. And then the third thing is to pray. To pray for your spouse. Now, you can pray with your spouse. That's like a way higher level thing, but I know I'm probably going to lose most of us if we do that. I think a good first step may just be to start saying, okay, I'm going to pray for my spouse. Now, I know what we do. You're like, well, I pray for my spouse. And I'm like, God, would you change their heart? Do you see what they're doing? Can you believe what they did? Oh my God, can you believe this? We're not talking that. God gives us over and over and over again a whole list of ways we can pray for people that we love. And this includes anybody. I mean, it could be your spouse. It could be a family member. If you're single, it'd be friends. I mean, all of these things you can actually apply to any relationship. All right, and so I want to kind of show you here in a moment how you can pray for your spouse. And for those of you tuning in online, I'm going to disappear here in a moment. So this is where you can screenshot this screen because I want you to have a full screen. If you're in the room, you might just want to get your camera ready because God is really, really clear. And again, by the way, all of this applies to any relationship. But He gives us 7 ways that He says this is how you pray for people that you love. You ready for this? All right, here's what He says. He says, my prayer is that God would give you the desires of your heart. My prayer is that God would bless you. My prayer is that Jesus would be in your heart, that He would dwell in you. My prayer is that God would strengthen you. My prayer is that God would fill you with joy. My prayer is that God would bring you peace and that you would experience God's power and life to the fullest. If you didn't get that, and if you're tuning in online, you might have to hit pause and rewind just so you can screenshot that right there. I'm telling you, this is how God instructs us to pray right here. He doesn't say, pray, hey, could you change them, God? Could you see what they're doing? I can't believe what they're doing. No, He actually says the prayer should be, God, would you bless them and would you change me? Would you bless them and would you, we're going to pray change prayers. These may not be the prayers that we like, but these are the ones that change things. God, would you bless them and would you change me? Now, this is what we see David in the Old Testament, this Old Testament warrior, poet, harpist, kind of manly warrior leader doing in Psalm 139. We get a glimpse into his prayer journal. And David, he actually says, God, I want you to search me and know, look at this phrase, know my heart, God. Now, you might be like, well, that's fine when things are smooth and nice and everything's where it should be, but understand that's not the context of what David's dealing with right here. David, the whole context around David saying this is he is really upset with some people, and rightfully so, and he's about ready to strike against them, and he pauses and he says, okay, God, would you search me? Because I know that if I get better, we get better. And so would you just search my heart and know my heart? Would you test me and know my anxious thoughts? Would you see if there's anything offensive in me and lead me in the way everlasting? And God, would you just reveal stuff to me? And if you really want to go all in, and what David's asking, then you take this and apply this to the lens of what Paul said in 1 Corinthians, which we're going to put back on the screen. And again, I'm going to disappear from those of you online for a moment. Because you might need to circle a word here. Maybe you want to say, okay, God, I want you to search my heart. And let's look at that through the lens of what Paul's saying here. If love is patient, love is kind, and it does not envy, and it does not boast. I mean, these are all choices. It's not proud. It doesn't dishonor others. It's not self-seeking. You might go, okay, God, if I want to search my heart. Would you show me which one of these actually you want me to work on this week? It's not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Maybe you just screenshot it and then you go into edit mode and just circle one of these verbs right here. It always protects. I mean, look at the choices. Always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. I'm telling you what, you go through that right there and you ask, okay, God, what are the aspects of love that, let me just circle one. This one right here, I'm going to work on this week. This is one of the ways I can actually, hydrate my spouse's heart. I can honor, I can serve. I promise you get 2 people going through that right there saying, God, would you search my heart? Would you help me point out what I need to grow in? I tell you what, that the sky's the limit for that couple right there in terms of what can happen in that relationship. And I know some of us are going, Curt, I don't know that my spouse would do that. That's totally cool. That's okay. Just start with you. What if you just began to say, okay, God, of that list, what's one thing I need to work on this week? What's one, of the choices I need to work on? And just begin that and just see what God begins to do. See what miracles God begins to open up. The New Testament writer James said, when we confess, where we miss it and we pray for each other, he says something happens. He said, we do this so that we can actually be healed. Jesus says there's a miraculous healing that begins to take place, when we begin to pray for one another. When we begin to say, God, would you bless them, and would you begin to change me? And I'm telling you this because I've actually lived it. In fact, early this year, I turned 50. And when I got to my 50th birthday, was a pretty exhilarating day for me. A lot of times, I'm turning 50. Honestly, I think I felt myself emotional throughout the day. And I think part of it was because, again, with some of the things that my journey had taken me through over the last couple of years, I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to make it to 50, literally. And I don't know if I'm going to make it with my family to 50. And I don't know if I'm going to make it with my wife to 50. And so we were just sitting having dinner together. And I was just sitting there going like, oh my gosh, I'm one of the most blessed guys in the world. And yet I knew that, I hadn't been the easiest person to deal with over the last, year or so. And wasn't necessarily living out of the best version of me. And I realized something that I just had never realized before. And that was that when one of you in a relationship is really hurting, you get so focused on your own pain and your own hurting that sometimes, everything's it's just about you. And you don't realize how selfish you've become. And you don't realize how difficult that has, become for your spouse, and because we're so focused on our own pain. And I felt probably worse in that season about just, where I was and how that was playing out for my family. And let me tell you that as I was praying that prayer, God, would you bless Julie and would you change me? With the help of my therapist and a lot of friends and, my wife who didn't go on her feeling but chose love and, God's redeeming grace, I can tell you that our marriage is stronger, and it's, there's been a lot of healing. And while our marriage has changed, I think the biggest thing that's changed is me. So I just want you to know that you can do this. And it starts when we say, okay, I'm going to hand over the rope. Not going to play tug of war. I want to help you win. When we say, okay, I'm going to hydrate. How do I pay attention? God, how do I hydrate this relationship? And then we pray for one. And I'm telling you, the sky's the limit. These are our next steps right here. And perhaps, one of these, God's just putting on your heart, say, I want you to put some attention into this week. And so maybe you want to mark that on a card. Maybe it's just, screenshots and, hey, this is what I'm going to work on. Maybe it's circling one of those verbs. I want to pray for us. I just believe God wants to do some healing as a part of our experience this weekend. And so let's stand. Let me pray for us. And we're going to sing one more song. God, I believe you're speaking to some of us today. And I just pray that there would be no guilt, no shame in this space right now, because we know that's not from you. That's the evil one. And so I just pray that you'd remove that right now. I just pray that you'd bring a new excitement in us right now for what you have in store for us. And I know some of us, we don't even believe or will question if, you have a plan for us. And so I just want you to look at me real quick. I know we're praying, but just open your eyes and look at me. Those of you online, just look at me for a moment. I'm praying for a miracle for you right now. For those of you that are just feeling like, I just don't know that this could happen for me, we're praying for a miracle, that something would begin in you right now. And you might be going, God, I don't even know that I have the strength or the faith to believe that. I'm going to let you borrow some of mine, because I've experienced some of that. I want you to know that it can happen. And so God, for the single people in the room right now, I know there's certain rough things and difficult things and painful things that have been experienced, even questions at times of, is this ever going to work out, or is there going to be another chance for something to work out? And God, I just pray right now that you would bring so much joy and peace and excitement and confidence for this season of life right now. And remind them nonstop that you have a plan for their future. And for those who, feel like, hey, my path is a gift of singleness. God, I just pray that again, there would be so much joy and so much peace and confidence that just won't stop in all that you're bringing their way right now. Father, for those of us in marriages right now that are just hard, if we're honest, we are going through the motions. Maybe we're just doing it for the kids. Perhaps even, for the optics of what everybody else thinks. Maybe we're just kind of business partners. God, I just pray you would infuse just ignite something right now. Help us to see that you actually can bring a joy and excitement, and it goes beyond the feelings, but it happens when I choose love. And so I just pray that you soften our hearts right now. For those of us in the room that things are good right now, God, we celebrate that. And I just pray that you would help each of those individuals, those couples, take things to new places. God, would your Spirit just infuse a freshness and a newness of life and intimacy. God, this is what we want. I mean, we're here because we want to grow in this. And so we just ask in this moment that you would move and that you would just do the work that only you can do right now as we open ourselves up to you. Thank you. Thank you for these pictures, God. And we just ask your Spirit to move in us.
every mind. 'Cause I know there is peace within your presence. I speak Jesus.
Is our prayer for you today, that you would experience the peace and presence that comes when we're running after our heavenly leader. We're so excited that you've joined us today. We'd love to pray for you. If you're interested in that, there are 2 ways that you can do that. 1, you can let us know on your connection card before you hit send. And 2, if you'd like someone to pray with you over the phone today, you can text the keyword need prayer to 317-834-7373, and one of our team members will be in touch with you soon. If you're a giver here at Crosspoint, I want to say a huge thank you for your generosity and all that you give to the Joy Box. If you're not a giver, but you'd like to become one, you can donate at this QR code or through the Give button on our website. Know that you and your gifts are a part of helping people experience so much goodness and the hope that God brings through this place each and every week, including this online broadcast. So thank you so much. Thanks again for joining us. We can't wait to see you next time for part 4 of our series, Fight For It.